All right, so we've got the basic idea of templates and we've got a little navigation system set up. So we're ready to get into how we can interact with forms on one of our HTML pages. The first thing we're going to need to be able to do is pass data into one of these templates and display it. So let's go over to the edition.html page and let's just add a little section down here at the bottom. I'm going to space it out as I tend to do for visual purposes. And let's just add result equals. And what we're going to do is after that equal sign, we want to display essentially a variable that's passed in. We want to display a piece of data that's given back to this page when it's routed. So the two curly braces syntax, and then we just need the name of this variable, and we can call it whatever we want. I will call it result. Okay, and I'll save that. And now let's go back to our app. Let's run it and see if we've broken anything by doing that. So I'll open this page in my browser. And if I click on edition, I haven't broken anything, but it says result equals and it doesn't display anything. So that's not great, but we are still functional. So let's take a look at this route as I look forward here on my screen. So we've got this route called edition, and it renders the edition.html page. What we can do now is we can essentially, in this render template function, we can pass in a named argument for that variable that we want to pass along. So I can say result equals, and it has to be a string. So I'll say nothing yet. And let's see if that works. I'll save that. I'm running in debug mode, so I should just be able to come over here and refresh. Result equals nothing yet. So this is an important idea for us as we continue to work here. I've been able to, in an HTML file, which we're going to call a template, I've been able to essentially define a placeholder for a variable value. And then when I route that, when I route to that URL, I can render the HTML page and assign a value to that. And I've just assigned the string nothing yet, but that can be anything we want. It can be, and it will be, the result of some math, for example. So that's a big step. That's going to help us a lot as we start to wire up some functionality for this. Before that, though, we need to actually create a form where the user can interact and give us some numbers, essentially. So we'll do that on the edition.html file. Okay, so over here in edition.html, we are no longer going to be coming soon. We're going to create a form here. So form tag, I'm going to leave that form tag empty for now. We'll have to come back to that. And all we're going to do is we're going to put a couple of text boxes, number boxes, I guess, for the user to input a couple numbers, and then a button at the bottom for them to calculate a result. And so I'll start out with an input type equals number, and I'm going to set a name attribute. This name attribute is going to be important to us over when we're writing code in app.py. So I'm calling it first underscore number, and I also think we should probably set an ID attribute, which is more on the HTML side here, and I'll just call this one N1. And we should have some user interface, so I'll label this, and I'll say label the for attribute. This is for N1, that's that ID, and we'll just say enter the first number, and we will save that. And I don't like to get too far without testing it, so let's go over to our HTML, to our web browser, and refresh. And it's looking good. We have a little numeric input box there. And now we just need another one of those inputs. And we'll just change all these to basically second, right? Second number, second number, and N2. Again, we'll save and refresh just to see how we're looking. My CSS is making that look pretty big, although I'm also zoomed in. So let's zoom out a little bit, make that look a little bit more normal. And last but not least, we are going to need a button for this. And so that's going to be down here. Input type equals submit, and the value, this is going to be what we want it to say. We'll just make it say calculate and get rid of my extra quotation mark there. Save that one more time, go over and refresh, and there is our calculate. But nothing actually works. You can see it, it tries to, because it's a submit button, it tries to figure out what to do with that, but nothing of interest happens. Okay, let's go back over to our code. And now we need to make this form actually do something. And so what we're going to do is we have to essentially assign this an action. And we're going to say the action is going to be the URL where we're sending it. So that's going to be URL for, and we're going to send it to the page we're already on. We're going to route it to addition. So again, it's all that confusing use of symbols in there, but I'll try and make sure you can see that. So we're going to route this to our addition function there. And we also, for the HTML here, we also need to tell what method we're going to be using for this request. So this is going to be a post. All right. Now we can test this. I think we're going to run into a problem. Let's see what happens. I'll save that. Come over here. I will hit refresh. I'm going to type in a couple of numbers and hit calculate. And we are getting an error because the method is not allowed for the requested URL. And what it's saying is that the method we're using is post. We're dealing with two different kinds of HTTP requests, a get and a post. And we've been using get up until this point. But now when we have a form, we have to post some data. So we have to make it so that our routing can handle that. And the way we specify that is back over in our app.py file. When we route for the addition, we need to add a named argument here that essentially we're going to list the methods that this will accept, that this will deal with. And it's going to be a list of all of the methods it will accept, and that is essentially get and post. We still need to be able to handle a get request because that's the first time the user visits the page and they're just they're just requesting, or they just want to see the page and type something in. We need to handle that. So let's see if this if that fixes our error first. So we'll go back to here. I'm going to refresh, type in a couple of numbers, and hit calculate. So at least we don't have an error. And we can come back here and look at what we've done. So this is that methods attribute, and we're saying this particular routing is going to handle get and post requests. We haven't had to specify this before because by default, a route will handle just the get request. We could make it if we wanted to, and sometimes when I do something like this to demonstrate with students, I might route to like a results page. And so a results page wouldn't handle a get, and we would just say methods equals post. I won't demonstrate that here in the interest of time, but that sets us up to handle this kind of request. Now we're going to have to figure out what to do with it, and for that we have to determine, is the request we're dealing with at the moment, is it a get or a post? Because we're going to do different things depending on what we're receiving. In order to take a look at that request and interact with it, we need to add one more item to our import up here. So I'm just going to go up to the top of my file and I'm going to add request. And so Flask has these request functions that will let us find out what kind of request we're dealing with, and it will also let us access the information that the form sent. So to use this for this problem, we can say if request.method is equal to post, then what do we want to do if it's a post request? And for now, again, we're going to take this in little steps. So we're going to return. I just copied and pasted my little return statement there, and I'm just going to make it say you clicked, so that I can see visually if this is working. And this is a return statement, so at that point the code would stop executing. And if it isn't a post request, it's going to basically skip down to this one, and it's going to work the same way it did before, which is to say result is nothing yet. All of this is a fancy way of saying this if statement is if it's a post, and what's left over is if it's a get request. So let's try it, see if I did this correctly. I'm going to refresh. Oops, I don't need to resend that data. I want to get a clean start here. Well, I'm sort of testing it already. I clicked on addition and I went to this page and it still says nothing yet. This should have been a get request, and I could incidentally go confirm that in the log in my terminal. But let's go ahead and type some numbers in and calculate, and I clicked. So all I've done here is I've confirmed that now this route will handle a get request and a post request. That's not a very useful piece of code there. Let me give myself some more screen space here. That's not a very useful result. That doesn't help us much. But the idea here is that now we have this chunk of code here, this code block inside the if statement, where we can do whatever we need to do with the data that we can get from this request. And the first thing we'll do is we're going to retrieve those two numbers that they have entered. And so I'm going to define a couple variables here. I'm going to call this add num1, and it's going to be equal to, I'm going to use that request again, dot form dot get, and now I pass in the name of the piece of data that I want from that form. And so I need to, after I just close that, I need to go back and take a look at my addition page. Oh, I had it open above. And I need to see what is the name of this. The name is first underscore number. So I believe that's going to be what we want to request here. And then we're going to do the same thing for add num2 equals request.form.get second underscore number. And I can run this and see if it works. Reload the page, hit 3 and 4, hit calculate. It didn't crash, which is always a good sign, but I don't know if it really retrieved those. So what I'm going to do as a temporary step here is I'm just going to print those out to my good old-fashioned terminal, right? So I'm going to say print add num1 plus a comma and add num2. And now I am going to, I'm going to need my terminal visible here. Oops, I didn't need a new terminal, I need my old one. And I have two, I'm going to delete that extra one. There we go. So my debugger is active. I'm going to need to see that print statement so I can verify if it worked. So I'm coming over here, I'm going to go back to the home page, kind of refresh. Now I'm going to hit addition. I'm going to type in 4 and 5 and hit calculate. Nothing changes on the HTML side, but I'm going to come over here, and buried inside of all those logs, it says 4,5. So it was able to retrieve those. I'll also point out that our log now shows that post request, because when I clicked the submit button, it executed a post request. All right, let's go ahead and close that terminal again. Now, we're at a kind of an important crossroads here, because now what we've done, I don't care about the print statement so much. I'll comment that out. But we've done something important, which is I've now made it so that the user can type stuff into the form and hit the button. And now I can, over in my Python code, I can retrieve that and assign it to a variable. And at this point, we can do whatever we want with it, just like any other Python program. In fact, what we've kind of accomplished is that we've just given ourselves a fancy way of creating a GUI, a graphic user interface. Up until now, we've been doing everything in terminal, and we use, for example, like the input function to have the user type something in. And once we have that input, we can do with it whatever we want. Same thing here. I've now got a web form, and the user can type in, and I can retrieve that, and now I can do whatever I want. I know I'm belaboring the point, but the reason I'm doing that is because what we're actually doing with this app is silly. An app that adds two numbers together. That was probably among the first things you ever learned in Python or in programming in general. So I'm not intending to insult you, but for the sake of the video, I wanted to keep it simple. On that note, we're actually going to call a function. This will be the easiest function, the simplest function you've written in a long, long time. Addition, and it's going to take two numbers. I will call this, I hate the variable names x and y, so I can't bring myself to do it. I'll call it num1 and num2. And we're just going to return num1 plus num2. Good. The idea now is I can call this, I'm going to make something called a result string. It can be whatever I want it. And I'm going to say the result string is going to be whatever we get from addition by passing in add num1 and add num2. All right, and that's all going to need to be converted to a string, which is going to lead me to another point here that we'll get to in a second. And then my result, when I return that, instead of returning you clicked, I'm going to return my result string. Okay. Now I've got a couple steps that I've skipped. I need to take these numbers and I need to recognize that just like the input function in our terminal applications, this is coming back to us as a string. So at this point, add num1 and add num2 are strings. And so I need to convert those to integers. I was going to do it up here as separate things, but we'll do it the more Pythonic way. So we're going to pass over int add num1 and int add num2. And I'm going to save that. Come over here, hit addition. I'm going to type in 3 and 5, calculate, and I have a result of 8. So it has worked correctly. I feel like I should stop for applause or something. This set of videos is taking a long time, but that's a big deal. We have now successfully done this. The task we've accomplished, or the actual math we've done, is completely trivial. And again, there is absolutely no reason on earth why we would make a function to do this for us. But you can take this now as like a pattern, and in basically this if block, you can do whatever you need to do with your code. It can be as fancy as you want it to be. You can call functions and define, you can instantiate objects, you can do everything you can do in any other Python program, and then return the result as a string back to whatever page you are working on. And we've now unlocked a whole new way of you to develop programs instead of just being stuck with that little terminal. One minor detail that we will address just so we can make our form look slightly prettier, which is when I click the calculate button and it does our math. My original numbers disappear, so now I'm looking at the result and I don't really know what my numbers were because I have a short attention span and I forgot. So I just want to, this is a way to reinforce something we've already learned. Let's go over to our addition.html and let's take a look at our inputs here. There is an attribute called value, and I can set that to whatever I want. So if I set that to 3, and come back here and calculate it. Oops, that's an error because I didn't provide any input. I walked into that one. So now when I go to this page, it's going to default to 3. All right. There's no particular reason why that's useful. But with that idea in mind, I don't have to set it to 3. I could set my value equal to first input, like whatever the input was that they typed in before. I can pass that back with my post and I can display that old number. It's one of those things that makes more sense when you see it than for me to fumble through an explanation. So I'm going to have first input and second input. And what I've done here, let's get rid of those quotation marks, is just like I did with the result down here, I've defined a couple variables that I'm going to display or that I'm going to use in my form. Now, if I don't use them, I can come back here, refresh, and I'll type 3 and 4. No change, right? The first time I click on this page, everything looks fine. But what I can do now is in my my handling of this post, when I pass in the result equals resultStir, I can also pass in, what did I call it? First input equals add num1, and second input equals add num2. And the formatting here is getting out of hand here, so I'll let it reformat that if you lost track visually what happened. This is where we are. So I've just added some more named parameters. I left a comma on there. So now when I render that addition page, I'm going to give it the result, and I'm also going to give it the 2 numbers that the user had typed in, and it will put those back into those inputs, right? So now I'm going to come back over here, refresh that. I'm going to type in now 5 and 6. And now I still get the result of 11, but that 5 and 6 got plugged back into those input boxes for me. It's a small detail, but we have to admit that small details matter in user interfaces. We've all been frustrated. How come I have to click this stupid thing every time? It should know that I want to click that, that type of thing. We really have covered a lot of ground here. This is where we're going to stop and give you the chance to kind of practice this by implementing the other pages, the other math calculators for this website. We've got the subtraction, multiplication, and division that we have not yet implemented. At the time I'm recording this, that's going to be the lab assignment for this module in CIS 256, but you should probably go to Canvas and verify that because I periodically change my assignments. But either way, it is a good kind of practice or good drill to now take these ideas and try and implement them yourself without kind of copying and pasting, but actually try and go through and make it do subtraction, multiplication, and division. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video, and as always, just reach out to me if you have any questions.